Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another video here on the channel. This is a what I'm reading right now video where I'm going to talk about what I've read in the past, what I'm reading at the moment, and what I shall be reading in the future. I said last week I was going to try and stop filming these videos on a Friday and start filming them on a Wednesday, and I've split the difference and it is Thursday morning. So that's pretty good going. We're inching back to the Wednesday schedule, and in my defence, as we all know, it's been really warm here in the UK and I just haven't been able to be in my office. Like, this room has been off limits to the entire house. But we're back, it's slightly cooler today, we've had rain. I'm going to talk to you about all the things I've read because I've read quite a lot. In fact, I think I finished 7 things since last time we spoke, which is not too shabby at all and puts me at 151 books read this year, which I'm very pleased with. Let me talk you through it. We'll go in chronological order. I finished Binti the Night Masquerade, the 3rd book in the Binti trilogy. I really liked this. I think Binti Home, the 2nd book, is stronger, but the 3rd book is good. It continues on from the previous 2 books, but where Binti 1 has us leaving Earth, Binti 3 has us coming back to Earth. I don't think that should be a spoiler for the series as a whole, but yeah, I thought it was really, really good, really interesting, world elements added in, that classic Nnedi Okorafor writing style, and yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I think if you are wanting to pick up Binti and you haven't picked up any of them yet, I would suggest obtaining in some way, shape or form the bind-up and reading them all as one, as quite a short book rather than as 3 novellas, because I think it works better as one story, for me personally. Like a story of 3 parts. And I don't think I would have wanted to leave a huge gap between all 3 of them. If you have already read Binti and you want something else to read, my recommendation is Remote Control, which is another Nnedi Okorafor novella that's just fantastic. We read that some point last year, I think, as like an Angela's channel buddy read thing, and it was a really good time. After that, it was Sunday, because I didn't do any reading on Saturday, because I don't know if the sprints are actually like live on the channel at the moment, but I made a dress on Saturday, live on the channel, and it was very enjoyable. We had a good time. Thank you for everyone who came to that. It was really, really good. I really love doing sprints. More on that anon. But yeah, on Sunday, I finished Animorphs 42. Yes, The Journey. This is that. There will be a video up in, I think 42 will be September, so stay tuned for that. If you're a patron, you'll get it early, but everyone else gets it in September. After that, it was Monday, and it was incredibly warm, and you would think that my brain would shut down in the way that it has done in the past, but for some reason, this particular heat wave, all I wanted to do was read. Like, all I could think to do was to put a book in front of my eyes. However, I did also want to sit in a dark room, so I switched all my focus over to my digital TBR, and I read some things that I wasn't necessarily planning on reading until maybe next week or even after August. I just pulled it forward. But first I read the Space Sirens book pick for July. This is Amari and the Night Brothers. This is a middle grade. I think it's my first time reading a middle grade with Space Sirens. I don't know if it's Space Sirens' first time reading a middle grade. This is really, really lovely. I've had a bit of a theme recently of secret magical societies that overlap the mundane world, and I've very much been enjoying it. It's one of my favourite. Is it a trope? Is it a... I don't know. I've really enjoyed it, and this is another one of those. And we have Amari, who her brother has gone missing, and she ends up being invited by her missing brother to join, let me try and remember what it was called, the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, there you go. Which is, as you might expect, they deal with supernatural stuff. But I thought this was a really well-written book. I'm really excited to chat about it with everyone else. It's been a long time since I've read a middle grade that wasn't Frances Harding, and I just had the best time with this. It's very reminiscent of things like Percy Jackson, and that kind of writing style and humour. Yeah, I had a thoroughly wonderful time with this. I would recommend it if you are a person who enjoys middle grade, or if you're a person who sometimes feels nostalgic for it. It was very, very well written. And then in possibly the most genre-shifty thing that's ever been done by me, I read Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey, which is a horror thriller. Cozy middle grade to horror thriller, anyone? This I've been very, very excited for because, as you know, if you watch the channel, I've been a huge Sarah Gailey fan for a very long time, and this was no exception. Although was it? Because I was a bit nervous because I've mostly enjoyed their speculative stuff, and like The Echo Wife was more speculative. This has some speculative elements in it. They are more horror-esque. This is a sort of haunted house story, but with a almost crime thriller layer over the top of it. Well, the best way to describe it is actually the plot. So our main character comes back home after a very, very long absence because her mother is dying. She comes back to the house that her father built, and her father, who has also passed away, was a serial killer and was convicted and went to prison. And in the meantime, her mum has been sort of letting tour groups and fanatics and serial killer interested people round the house. And there's the element of, I think, reflection on the current trend for true crime in there as well. But there's way more to the book than that, and it's really, really creepy, genuinely very unsettling. I would look up content warnings. If you are sensitive to a lot of things, I would do that. But it's really hard to rate because on the one hand, totally, totally horrifying, and I don't want to reread it because, my heart. And also, that was really well written, and in that bizarre, enjoyable reading experience that a horror book is. It was that. I had a good time. I rated it 4 stars in the end because I just couldn't decide. A book that I've been very excited for a while, The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. This is the sequel to The Jasmine Throne. I reread The Jasmine Throne before picking this up. I do recommend that you do that because the reading experience I had, having done that, was that I think The Oleander Sword is a stronger book, which is fantastic. I love it when that happens. So often sequels are a bit bleh. Second books in trilogies can often also be a bit bleh. This was great. This was fantastic. I think it helps because while the main characters in this story, according to kind of the blurb, are the Princess Malini from book 1 and Priya, who at the beginning of book 1 is a servant, and I don't want to spoil book 1 for you, so I'm sticking with where they are at the start of that. While they are the main characters, if you've read The Jasmine Throne, you'll know other characters' perspectives are thrown in. There are more characters than just those two. And sometimes Tasha Suri will do a thing that quite a lot of authors do, where they'll throw in a perspective that's just one chapter from an interesting person's POV, so you'll just get a little insight into something else or maybe some foreshadowing of something. And I think having read book 1, you have a better sense of who is a point of view character and who is just like a cheeky little bonus. So we do get some new point of view characters, some new cheeky little bonus characters in the Oleander Sword, and the plot was really, really great. There was far more sapphic yearning, which I'm always here for. I'm really, really excited for book 3, and that's my main sadness, is that I now have to wait for book 3. But every time I read one of the sapphic trifecta, it becomes my favourite, with the exception of She Who Became the Sun, which dipped off in my liking, but who knows, the sequel might bring it back. So I think I now have to do a reread of The Unbroken to fully cement this in my head and keep it all fair. I don't know. After that, are you prepared? Are you emotionally ready? Because I finished the first binding. Yes, yesterday... it shouldn't be that exciting. Basically, yesterday I went, enough is enough. I am finishing this book, come hell or high water. I want to get to the end because I'm enjoying the story, but it's been so long now that I don't want to go another week talking about it. So this is a really lyrical, very, very sort of stories within songs within stories, long book. Fantasy book, Silk Road fantasy, I believe. And it follows the story of Ari, who is both telling us a story about his past, so we get that story, and then sometimes within his past, people will tell stories. And I think it really works. I really like that as a writing style. It's been compared to Name of the Wind. I would also draw that comparison. I think there's a lot of elements there that are similar in that way of coming back to a story and zooming in and out and that kind of thing. I would say if you are planning on reading this, I actually recommend doing it the way that I did. I am a person who, as you can tell, likes to just sit with one book and go through it from start to finish and live my best life and have a wonderful time. I think this book requires more time than that, and that might be a selling point for you, that might be a downside for you. I think reading it the way I did, reading just a little bit every few days, just enjoying it, taking a moment, taking it in, and then moving on and having sort of almost a chaser of a shorter book on the side. I say that, Oleander Sword was like 400 pages, but I am what I am. In my review, I described it as the difference between a book that is sort of a whitewater rapids race. You go down it, there's action all the way, you're having a great time, you're swept along, whereas this feels much more like sort of a river cruise, where there's just a lovely tour guide who's telling you really interesting things about various different landmarks on the way. And both are exciting in their own way and both stay with you in their own way, and I think this is going to be one of those latter books for me. The one thing I request is that when there is a sequel, we please have a recap at the start, because people like me who don't have time to do a reread of an 800-page book would appreciate it. Thank you. So yes, I would absolutely recommend the first binding. I know it's taken me almost a month to get through, but I actually really enjoyed that month-long reading experience, and I would recommend it to you. Lastly, it was finally cool enough to pop lights on and to pick up my physical TBR, so I read A Cat, a Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. Can you tell I'm in the Nnedi Okorafor section of Overbooked? I read this before this was a reread, and I very much enjoyed it. I still think that I dropped off a bit towards the end. Like, the beginning is much, in my opinion, much stronger narratively. It kept my interest a bit more than the end did. However, I do now have books 2 and 3 that I'm going to pick up over the next couple of weeks, so I'm very hyped to do that and to see where the story goes, because it's been like a year since I read this, and I want to pick it up. This is another sort of magical world overlaid on the mundane world, but this one is set in Nigeria. We have Sunny, who is, she was, I believe, born in Nigeria, lived in America, and then moves back to Nigeria, and we meet her back in Nigeria when she's about 12, and she discovers that actually she has magical powers. She is, as this book calls it, a leopard person, and sort of gets access to this world, but there's also a murderer on the loose. This I would describe as older middle grade, I think. I don't know that 100%. The imprint is Penguin Teen. I would say younger teenagers would have a good time with this. And I thought it was excellently written. I prefer Nadia Korafor's adult stuff, but I'm really interested to see where the story goes in book 2 and 3 before I pass full judgment. In terms of things I'm in the middle with, it's nothing new. I'm still on the Count of Monte Cristo. At the moment, I'm 69% of the way through. And then I have The Wall of Storms. I've still only read 10% of that, but I would like to finish that this weekend. I think that would be a nice project for me. I do have some other things I need to get to, though. I want to get to Legendborn by Tracy Dion, because the sequel, Bloodmarked, comes out next week, and I would like to read that, so I would appreciate a refresher. And then I also have Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is a reread for Overbooked because I didn't take it in enough the first time I read it, which is a lesson for me to make notes as I'm reading. In terms of other things that I need to get to over the next couple of weeks, I have a review copy of The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which if I don't get to it next week will be an August read, so I'm excited for that. I'm also starting to move into the P section of Overbooked, which auto captions, please don't do anything weird with that. So I am rereading Tamara Pierce's works. So I'm starting with Alana and In the Hand of the Goddess next week, which I'm so excited for. Alana is such a good book. There are a couple of new releases I want to talk about this week, both of which I've talked about in either this week's video or last week's video. So let's start with last week's video. I talked about Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. In case you missed last week, I did an audiobook read of this and I thought it was really, really good. A little bit on the nose with some things, / if you're already very versed in the kind of terminology that Juno Dawson is using, it feels a little bit like, I don't need to know this, but thank you for teaching other people, perhaps. But I thought that again, magical world laid on top of mundane was a good time. I think the audiobook is the way to do it if you're going to read it, because I feel like it makes those slightly more unsubtle moments of writing a little bit less obvious. And also it's Nicola Coughlan, so, go for it. Would recommend, enjoyed it. And then the other thing that is out is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey, which I just talked about. I read it the day before it came out. I was still in time for my review. And this, again, if you are up for that kind of read, I think you will have a good time. I'll be really interested if you are a horror or thriller reader through and through. You know the genre, you know the references, you're there like, bam, 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 I'm great at this. Could you let me know what you thought about it once you've read it? Because I'm really interested to see how someone who does typically read that genre feels about it compared to me. Because for me, it's, oh, that was such a palate cleanser. I don't read stuff like that very often, so I'm feeling intrigued by it and all that stuff. Whereas you might go, well, this is just really similar to this book and I like that book more. I'm interested to know your thoughts. Alrighty, I've been talking for far too long, so I shall close off with Sprints news. At the moment, I would really like to do sprints on Saturday, as I have been doing for the last few weeks. I have to decide if I have the time, or what else needs to be done in the house, because there is some gardening that needs to get done, so I might do sprints and just start later in the day, like maybe kind of 11ish, and that gives me a few hours to sort my life out. So if you're up for sprints, I will, as ever, if I've already made the sprints link, I will pop it in the description. If not, just keep an eye on the channel or set notifications to on, and you will know that I'm going live and we can do some reading and productivity stuff together over the weekend. What have you been reading? What have you been up to? Are any of these new releases on your TBR? A lot of new releases this week because I was going through the digital stuff. It happened that way. Let me know all those things down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated, and I really want to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'm like this close to doing it. So please, 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 please do subscribe. I'd like to also thank my patrons over on Patreon who support the channel and make videos like this possible, while also getting early access to videos and bonus content. Ooh, snazzy. If you would like to join their number and experience more of this, that's down in the description as well. And if you really want to, you can follow my social media and my Discord, which are all linked in the description. Discord is a lovely place where we chat about books and you get like live what I'm planning on reading, if that's what you're into. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. So, after that, it was Monday and everything was terribly warm. Hello, dog. Overlap. Oh, I smacked myself in the face, but editing Judith cut all of that previous stuff out. It was bad. And then I have The Wall of Storms. I've still only read 10%,